We're excited to announce the first ever, first of its kind higher education podcast conference brought to you by Edu Alliance, the EdUp Experience, and Podium. This is happening Saturday, July 12th at the University of Illinois Chicago campus. This is an in-person event, one day only, the first of its kind. This is for people working in and around higher education who are interested in starting a podcast, who may have a podcast, want to learn more about podcasting. So if you want to be there, please go to higheredpodcon.com. That's higheredpodcon.com to learn how you can get your early bird registration, see who the keynote will be, and how you can submit proposals to be a part of this amazing inaugural conference. So that, again, go to higheredpodcon.com to learn more. Do you want to get invites to special events? Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, behind-the-scenes episodes, and original content? Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Well, you can go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and become a subscriber today.
So welcome, everyone, to another episode of the EdUp Experience. And today we have Deb Adair. She's the executive leader of Quality Matters, and she will be our guest today. Greg Pilar and myself, Lori Shandison, we are kind of subbing today for the two masters of the podcast, Joe and Elvin, and we're happy to be here today to stand in and to have a conversation with Deb. So Deb, Quality Matters is known for its commitment to ensuring excellence in online education through its rigorous standards. And I'd like us to talk more about Quality Matters. So can you give us an overview of Quality Matters and its mission in the realm of online education?
I'd be happy to. Thank you for having me, by the way. It's interesting because Quality Matters has been doing its work for the last 20 years, and we've expanded our mission just as online has expanded and the lines between online and on campus have gotten blurred. So now our mission is really to improve the quality of online and digital learning. So it's a pretty big umbrella in that area. So we started 20 years ago, as I said, and the reason that we began was to solve a particular problem of a group of community colleges in Maryland. And they ran a seed bank where they basically a course sharing network there. And again, this was 20 years ago, so it was pretty innovative at the time. But they realized that there was still a bit of Wild West out there with online learning, and they needed to find a way for all of the institutions to agree or on a shared definition of what quality looks like in online learning. So they wrote a FIPSE grant, that's the Fund for Improvement of Secondary Education, and they received this FIPSE grant for a 3-year project to do just that. And what resulted from that was a set of standards for quality, and at that time in online learning, and online learning design specifically, review process focused at the course level, and some professional development to train faculty how to be reviewers for that purpose. And so that was the foundation. So after the 3-year grant ended, QM launched as a nonprofit service. And then we've continued to build and expand. Where our attitude is sort of research first, and to see what's out there, to be able to identify what is truly best practice, what is truly evidence of quality, and then put that into practice in a very applied way. And what we found in using faculty as reviewers is that was a learning opportunity for the faculty too, because it wasn't just the course that was being reviewed, it was the 3 faculty reviewers on each course that we used. And they all learned from that process, not only from the training that we gave them to do the review, but also through that process, they went back and they improved their own courses, their own online courses, and they improved their on-campus courses. So this is some data that we've been collecting all this time about the outcomes of the review. And so it really is a continuous improvement process for everybody involved in that review.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I've been involved in online learning for a long time. 2000, actually, since 2000. And a lot of the criticism was that it wasn't going to be as rigorous as the face-to-face classroom. And it's so interesting because those faculty that were teaching the online classes wanted to retain the integrity of those courses more than anyone else.
Yes.
They were focused on the quality and the content. And to your point, just ensuring that this was going to be a great learning experience for the students. And just the commitment so early on was amazing, but the criticism was certainly unwarranted. Greg, I don't know if you had a question now.
Yeah, no, you mentioned they're going back over, 20 years. And in that time, there's been a lot of advancement in online learning. And you see a number of institutions that have really exploded with how they deliver online learning, and the quality of it has significantly increased. And in that time, have you been able to, you mentioned research is a big part of the work that Quality Matters does, but have you been able to sort of capture at all the impact that Quality Matters has had on academia? I mean, I know at the institution I'm currently at, a good number of our faculty have been Quality Matters trained, at least at a basic level. I know at my previous institution, more than 50% of the faculty had received that training, and those are two smaller private institutions. But over a 20-year period, I'm assuming that a huge number of faculty out there have been impacted by Quality Matters training.
Yeah, so we went back and tried to look at the number of institutions we've had as members over that period of time. And so we've worked with over 2,000 individual institutions, primarily in higher ed, but we also have a K-12 rubric, K-12 standards and activities as well, and sort of a very modest effort in continuing and professional education. So we're pretty broad in that way, and it's always been a challenge for us because the way that we have to get evidence of our impact from the institutions themselves, right? Because we don't take control of those courses. The reviewers go out into those courses. And so we do some survey data and those kinds of things. And so I think we do have a few, actually we have a very large paper coming out that'll be out in probably 2 weeks about the impact of Quality Matters that will be on our website, but we've distilled some points from that. And there's two areas in where we are seeing impact. One is from the students themselves. The students are recognizing the quality of these courses. It makes them think differently about their instructors when their courses have been designed using QM, that their instructors are better and the experience is higher quality. And the instructors themselves have benefited. And so we have a number of points that we've been able to distill. The research that this is based on is, I think this is an update from 2015, the last time that we did this. And it's all of the research that the institutions are doing on this. So we didn't conduct this research ourselves, right? So we've sort of done a meta-analysis of what's out there. And so, as you can imagine, you know how varied high it is. And, some of the research is better than others that they might do on this. But looking over the aggregate, these are what we found, or those are the two areas where we're having the biggest impact.
This is all so important right now. I mean, I'm assuming that you saw an uptick in institutions wanting to go through Quality Matters training, because I think a lot of the concern is that, now we have to have classes online, and, that looked very differently depending on who put the class online. Did they just create PowerPoints? They just speak to the students synchronously or asynchronously with boards? And a lot of these assignments have to truly be intentional to create positive course outcomes, right? You have to change the type of assignment based on the modality in which the course is delivered. So what kind of changes or shifts in numbers did you see relative to, what you were doing at Quality Matters? More demand?
Yes. So this is, I can speak to this generally because, I wish after 20 years with the maturation that does exist in pockets out in the field that everybody was doing this, because it's not a mystery anymore what it should look like, but that takes effort. It takes investment on the behalf of the institution, right? In terms of developing quality courses and supporting the instructors and providing them the right kinds of, training, and also all of the wraparound services. So I would like to say, everybody's there. Everybody is not there. We have a better understanding of it, but I think it sort of comes in waves. Maybe it's the early adopters and in fact, the early adopters were the institutions that first engaged with us. And like you said, Lori, it's all volunteer. Nobody is making institutions do this. And so the institutions that had really innovative faculty who are experimenting with online in the early days had us come in because they had a hard time telling those faculty that great that you were innovating, but here's a set of standards that's research-based, that this is what you should be aligning your courses to. And that work happened pretty early on, a lot of times at the community colleges, because they were the first really to start trying to use online learning in a significant way. And so now over time, what we've seen is some institutions are quite mature and they are investing in all of the pieces to do this well. We still have institutions that really, they did nothing with online until the pandemic.
Right.
And during the pandemic, we saw a lot of institutions join us. But, a set of standards, it's not a magic pill people can take, right? So what we found is the realization of how much work there is to do online well. It's not inexpensive to do.
Right.
And it takes effort, across units to do this well. And it takes experts to do it well. And, we have seen now that there's a lot of other, I don't want to minimize it by calling it shiny objects, but there's a lot of other things right now that are taking higher ed's attention from this. So I think the institutions that are looking at doing online, and a lot of them are, you probably saw our Chloe survey data, where, the intention of institutions now is to continue to build out online versions of their online courses and their online programs, right? The majority of responders told us that. And they told us that their students are demanding it. Even their on-campus students are demanding options for online, right? So that's the demand, that's the strategic intention. Whether they are approaching the resourcing and the investment strategically is a whole nother question, because there's also the micro-credentials focus that is requiring attention from those institutions and investment, and now AI. And so it's a tough time to be in higher education right now, I think, because there are a lot of demands and resources are diminishing and they have to prioritize. So it's, so I think, but the need to invest and to do this well doesn't go away if you want quality learning experiences online.
Could you talk a little bit, with the competition for resources, no doubt a lot of focus has been on the faculty development piece, the course, the instructional design piece in developing with online courses. But a while back, you mentioned a little bit about the wraparound services.
Yeah.
And, a key part now that I wonder, I'd love to hear your perspective on is, and I get the impression, and please correct me here if I'm a little bit off on this, is that a little bit of what's been perhaps for institutions, a little bit of a perhaps a delay or lag in as they develop online instruction and online curriculum and things like that, is, they may be developing their courses, their programs and things like that, but the services to support the student learning and the students as they work to understand how perhaps, what comes when they take an online course, how that learning may differ from a traditional course that they have, especially when it's their first time, taking an online course, or those students who decide then to take a credential completely online. One of the areas that may be really difficult for for institutions who do offer online instruction but don't have the online the services to support that online structure can be really difficult then to retain those students and help them succeed. Those are resources that can be very difficult to bring up and when you're trying to also have the instructional designers and things like that. Can you speak a little bit in terms of what you're seeing on that front with the wraparound services and the student services?
Yeah, and I think we're really leaning into that because that's an excellent point, Greg. And I think we have, our initial model with Quality Matters is almost like a subscription. Here are all the tools. Here's how you do this work. Here's some train the trainer material. But some of the things that you're just identifying are things that we recognize institutions need more help with in understanding the whys and the hows, but also in thinking about how to implement that across the institution. And so we have launched a consulting service to be able to help institutions sort of do a readiness audit. Or are you really ready? Are you thinking about all the things that you need to have in place? So there's the student orientation piece of it. Sure. There's also the ensuring that the various academic services and student support services you're providing to your students on campus are now available to those online students at a time and in a way that they can access it. And that's really different for a lot of institutions. And so that's, we have gone into the consulting piece because we found that part of that is really sort of a need to have someone who deeply understands the space to come in and to be able to kind of look at what you're doing and flag for you where you really need to think about building, investing, capacity development for this kind of work. If you want to do this with quality in mind,
you certainly have to think about it. A couple of things I was thinking about as you were speaking, and one is that Quality Matters really helps to minimize any anxiety I think that a faculty member would have being told, go and put this course online. How do I do it? How am I making sure that it's rigorous enough, that I'm able to deliver on the student outcomes? I mean, it's really interesting, and I'm curious to know what common misconceptions about online education do you believe still exist and that Quality Matters helps to kind of address?
Higher Ed PodCon is coming. Go to higheredpodcon.com. That's higheredpodcon.com to learn more. Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content, invites to special events, and more? Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Do you want to get all this while helping to sustain EdUp? Then go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and become a subscriber today.
So I can speak first person here because I've been faculty traditionally on campus, and then I moved to online. And the first time that I had to do that, I actually went through a training, but it was really more about using the learning management system, right? And there is a little bit of affiliated pedagogy with that, but mostly it was about here are the tools and here are some ways to think about using it. As a faculty member, I always got really good student evaluations in my on-campus courses because I put a lot of thought into it. But I didn't know how to think about it for online, and I kept thinking about all of my activities, like how will this work online? Will this achieve what I'm trying to achieve? And so what we find for the faculty that go through our professional development is there's a big sort of aha, because, maybe the first time they've really thought about or learned about backward design, and the fact that this concept of alignment, that first you think about what it is your students need to know and do, as a result of your course. And then you have to think about all the things that you're doing in your course to ensure that they're aligned so that that objective can be met. And it's much easier said than done. And so that's usually the big aha for faculty. The other part of
that because
okay.
when faculty have assignments, they think they just have to maybe use the same assignment or type of assignment, but just bring it online. And that is probably not what you should be doing. You should look for another opportunity to use the platform in a way to engage the students. But there's not always a one-to-one translation.
Yeah.
Am I right?
That's right. And so there's a photograph, and now I'll try to paint this. This is odd because this is a podcast, but I'm going to try to verbally explain this picture, because it kind of explains the issue of thinking through the affordances of the technology. So there's a photograph it was like college or classroom in the air. So it was a photograph probably from the 50s or 60s of a K-12 classroom inside an airplane. But the airplane was on the ground, and the classroom inside that airplane looked exactly like a K-12 classroom would. The little desks, the teacher's desk out front, the globe sitting on the desk, right? They have Globe of the World. Mm-hmm. But they were in an airplane. So the affordances of an airplane would allow you to, take the students on an aerial tour if it was a geography class. So you could look around and you could use the affordances of the aircraft to explore that subject very differently. But what we do oftentimes, or how faculty think about it, is this is what I've done in my campus course. Now I'm going to take that and stick it into the learning management system and do the same thing. Right. But unless you really understand the affordances of that technology, you're not going to be able to think about how you could do things differently. And really, it takes professional development. It takes sharing. It takes a community of practice to help the faculty connect with others in their discipline and see how they're doing it, right? So it's in some ways a very different mental model for faculty.
Yeah, and that's, as I actually think back to my own journey, I first started teaching online in 2007, and I, as you're talking about some of these changes and what's involved in online learning, I mean, being quite honest, myself, I some of the practices I did that first year I taught online it was a textbook of what you don't do.
Yeah, absolutely.
in online learning, because I did that. I was taking that traditional course, and I thought, okay, I put it online, and voiceover, and for me, what I saw, and I've done the Quality Matters, applying the rubric, and what I gained the most from it was particularly as it was starting to relate with connecting the learning outcomes, making sure how I connected to the course, but really the student engagement piece. Because that was the piece for me that I thought I had to think about it differently with how I engage the students, whether it was a synchronous or asynchronous online course. Had to think about that, but for me, and this is getting to that where I'm going. My question for you was, I came away from that training though, because after I taught my first online course, for the rest of my teaching career before I moved into administration, I had a mixture of course modalities. I taught hybrid. I taught, some face-to-face, some online, and I took away the benefits of the Quality Matters training. Even in my face-to-face courses, because nowadays with learning management systems, even a 100% face-to-face course, you're still complementing it or supplementing it with some, digital materials and things like that. And so even for those faculty that say, "Oh, I don't teach online," so I don't know, but that's that's not true. You still have, likely some components.
Uh-huh.
So, and I still hear that to this day when talking with faculty about, whether it's quality matters training, or I oversee faculty development and working with any kind of training with instructional design or online learning or online training. No, I don't need to know that. So what are some of the things that you say to folks who think that for especially with quality matters, that no, I that's only for online instruction?
Yeah. So I used to, in my early days with Quality Matters, I used to travel to campuses, and I would have the big convening of faculty, and I would pass out the standards, and I always got asked two questions. First, or there was two observations. First, the faculty would look at this list and they'd go, that just looks like good teaching, right? And the second one was, well, how come the people not teaching online don't have to do this, right? And so it does apply, right? And because the standards are not prescriptive and there's various ways you can do this, it can be applied, right? Our review process is focused on online digital because our reviewers have to be able to see that evidence that's in the course, right? And that's why we're focused in that area of that, and because it was the only way we could get in to do this quality assessment of an instructor's course, was because we could say to them, truly say to them, we're not evaluating your content. That's your expertise. That's your disciplinary. We're looking at the design and the way that you've pre-planned this course. And that was more acceptable because otherwise we ran into a lot of academic freedom concerns, and we still do. That still exists, right? So we have to kind of explain what it is we're doing.
Wasn't that welcome? Because as an instructor, I would be happy if someone was able to come in and look at how I design my course to make sure if I had maybe an exercise that typically included this type of activity, that I chose an alternative for the online modality that supported the learning I wanted to achieve in the classroom. I'd want to make sure there was another set of eyes because I think, we spoke about it earlier. There's a lot of research that has gone into how to have the best courses online, how to keep them rigorous and to make sure that they achieve their goals. And I would want to make sure, not being an expert in the area at the time, that there was someone who could come in and say, you have this flat group discussion and it's not really going to generate the type of interaction that you'd want to see relative to this content. So here's an activity that you can do in a distance setting that might lend itself to a better outcome. I would have loved someone to come in and give me that type of direction. And again, what I'm going to teach is what I'm going to teach. So I understand the academic freedom part, but knowing how to teach it in a way that translates well to my students is the ultimate goal.
And I think that's how we convince faculty, is that this isn't a gotcha. Every course should be able to meet these standards. What you're going to get is the feedback from other instructors about how to do it. And so what we would always say is it's a gift. It's a gift to you to have other faculty kind of taking time on your course and being able to give you feedback against research-centered standards, right? And give you some practical, useful, applicable advice on how to make your course better. And so we just had to kind of break through that initial barrier of what people are going to be in my course.
Was that messaging received well? Did that make it better?
Well, so it isn't always us QMHQ, as some of the schools call the nonprofit, but we have individuals at the institutions that are the coordinators that are employees, that are staff at the institution, that have to communicate this. So in some sense, it's about the the skill of those coordinators to be able to make that argument. And so, it's a human kind of, this whole thing, in spite of it being about technology, everything is human-centered, right? And so it really was the success of that really rode on the individual. We try to provide training and that kind of thing, but it's about the context too at that institution.
Did you have another question, Greg? We are close to the end of our time, and I wanted to you got in what you wanted to before I
Yeah, no. One more question I have is, with the future of higher ed, I know, Deb, you've written a bit about, and you talked a little bit earlier about micro-credentials, and that's an area that I've had a bit of an interest in. I was just curious if you could talk a little bit there too with, as you see the future of that, particularly as it relates with online learning, how you see that sort of taking a hold. That's something where, again, it's just like with online learning in the early days, credibility was a bit of a challenge, but eventually online learning has definitely, I feel it's reached a solid level of credibility. Micro-credentialing still not quite there yet, but I think it's just a matter of time. Could you speak a little bit in terms of how do you see that changing? Does Quality Matters have a potentially play a role at all in micro-credentialing, or?
Well, we're having conversations. We think our role is really in collaboration within the big ecosystem, because it is a very, very ecosystem right now. It's certainly not just higher education, but there's all kinds of providers of micro-credentials. So really what we're doing now is figuring out where we're going to be the most impactful in this broader space. But, my vision is, we'll stay close to the academic side of the house, in the sense of, higher education in particular is kind of becoming, in my mind, I think of it as sort of this hub to which different kinds of learning will need to be attached, that higher education needs to figure out how to intake learning that happens elsewhere and evaluate it. They need to figure out how to connect that to degree pathways, and they need to figure out how to deconstruct their degree pathways in a way that allows students to be more successful in making progressive access, and to go in and out of higher education. This is sort of the direction that we're going. And so I think our space is going to be looking at, helping with that intersection between higher education and the other kinds of learning, other kinds of providers of education, and what's quality in that space. So we're really interested in these intersection areas. We've just done a project on course sharing and quality. What are the quality questions and solutions when two institutions are collaborating and in teaching students? And so that's the space that's really interesting to us. And so I think we will evolve in that area.
Well, thank you so much for joining Greg and I today, Deb. As we wrap up here, I'd like to ask, what are your predictions for the future of online education? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think it's going to continue to, those lines will be blurred. I think we talked about it a little bit today, that, students on campus, their on-campus courses will, of course, include technology. They'll be on campus. They may take wholly online courses while they're on campus, right? And so it's blurring within a course, within a program, and trying to talk about efficacy as it aligns to a particular modality doesn't make any sense anymore, right? So we really need to kind of pull back and look at that student learning experience, and of course, student outcomes from that learning experience. And I think being able to articulate outcomes to skills that matter in the workplace is also going to be very important. to be able to do that kind of connection. So online learning isn't going to go away because that modality is what facilitates things like micro-credentials, right? If it facilitates mobility, it's just going to be diffused.
Well, thanks again for spending the time with us today. You mentioned an article that was going to come out in a couple of weeks. Can you tell us the title of that article again and where we can find it?
Well, it'll be on our website, and it's our, you would think I would have that at my fingertips. It's by our founding director of research emeritus. She's been doing this work. And I can tell you,
I just know that so many people would want to get their hands on that.
Yes, and we'll have some. They're kind of like infographics that are related to that. One on the faculty benefits and one's on the student benefits that come out of this. It's here it is. It must be available too. So it's it'll be available on our research page in our on our website. It's Quality Matters in the Research, a systematic literature review of QM-related research from 2015 to 2023.
Well, interesting.
I'll warn you now that it's a significant piece of work that maybe you need to get AI to do a summary for, but we will have some summary documents available on the website too.
I mean, I would just love to see it because I know that there were significant changes, regardless of what they were, post-pandemic. And it's interesting to see what the impact will be. But anyway, thank you so much, everyone. You've been EdUp again with your guest host standing in today, Greg Pilar, and myself, Lori Shanderson. We hosted Deb Adair of Quality Matters, and we had an awesome time with her. And we look forward to having you back again on another episode of the EdUp Experience.
Did you buy your tickets yet? Higher Education's first podcast conference is coming July 12th. Go to higheredpodcon.com, higheredpodcon.com. Get your tickets. Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content? That's right, original content, invites to special events, and more? Do you want to get all this while helping to sustain EdUp? Then go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and subscribe today.